Good afternoon. We started yesterday on a journey this week, making our way toward Resurrection Sunday or Easter. And today I'm standing here on our campus, but I'm standing across the road from, you look over my shoulder and you can see there the fire station. And that fire station represents to us the value of life, because these men and women often risk their life to save lives as they go into perilous situations. Well, today we're going to talk about the price that's paid. And sometimes these men and women from our fire department make great sacrifices to save others. So we want to talk today about the price, the value of life. And as a matter of fact, when we talk about the Passover, God is establishing through this memorial observation for His people to remember the sacrifice that was required for their deliverance. And literally it started with them choosing a lamb, a spotless lamb. If you can imagine, the perfect of all the lambs, 1 year old, and they were going to have that in their family for a little while, for a certain period of time. But then, as it says in Exodus chapter 12, they were to take that lamb and sacrifice him so that they would indeed experience the Passover. And we'll talk more about that this week. But then he went on to tell them that they were to observe this meal, but as they observed it, they wouldn't always sacrifice a lamb again. That was a one-time thing. So what they did was, a part of their Passover meal, they were instructed to have a lamb shank or a bone. And it was placed on the plate of the Passover observance. And this bone was to remind them of that sacrifice. But it also reminded them, we see in Exodus chapter 6, how this phrase is, God stretched out His arm. And so again, this reminds them of that outstretched arm, where God stretched His arm out in judgment for Egypt, but at the same time, that stretching out was a deliverance for them. Now, as they continued this service, it was establishing a covenant that God would establish to them, between Himself and them, to be His people. And so what they did from there is that they would continue to keep these laws. They'd observe this meal to remember the sacrifice, and the price for their deliverance was this innocent lamb. But again, God knew that they were not going to be able to keep that covenant completely, because literally it was a foreshadow of what was to come, with what Jeremiah and Ezekiel referred to as a new covenant with God's people. And this new covenant also would be purchased by a very priceless lamb. But this lamb was different. This lamb was not one that they cooked from their herd, but this actually was God's only Son. So again, this new covenant, where God said He would take those laws of His covenant and put them on our heart, would be purchased by the very life of His Son. Literally, God Himself was the only perfect lamb that could pay the price for our deliverance of slavery to sin. And we'll talk more on that in the coming days.